Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert, and today we're going to be talking about one aspect of doing your own side hustle, or indeed starting your own business, whichever, which is the selling part. Okay, how to sell something. Okay, the title of this, I believe, is, I don't have it in front of me, but it's the best way to sell is to show them, to say and to show. And we're going to be talking about that. And another element of this also is talking about what you're saving your customers from by engaging you, either purchasing your product or your service. That's what we're going to be talking about today. But first, just as a reminder, normally on this channel, I'm talking about how to get a job. It's all about careers, basically, but the more conventional side of this, be sure to watch my latest video, which is this, which came out a couple of days ago. So if you haven't seen that yet, check it out. And yes, let's get started. We're going to be taking some questions later on. But first, let's start talking about this, okay? Something we haven't talked about very often, how to sell. Very important part of doing a side hustle. A lot of people, when they've never done a business venture of any kind before, they are very self-centered. They think it's all about them. And they focus on, what they would like to do and what they're capable of doing, which is good. But you got to remember that the focus has to be put on your customers, okay? It should be an adventure, a race to figure out how customers think, what they're interested in, what they care about, what their opinions are, what their preconceived notions are, okay? Because if you had full and complete information about what people actually thought, what they needed, what they wanted, that kind of stuff, then doing this and making money would be easy, right? You'd be able to know exactly what people wanted, exactly how to sell it to them, exactly what to say to them to convince them to do business with you, exactly what their concerns were, and exactly how to alleviate their concerns and how to demonstrate value to them in a way that they understand, that they prefer. And you would also know the best way to reach them. Okay, what channel to go over. If it's a matter of putting up a sign, if it's a matter of reading a post, reading a review about you, if it's a matter of seeing an in-person demonstration, if it's a matter of hearing word of mouth, whatever it is that would best convince people and demonstrate the value that you provide. If you knew that, this would be easy. It wouldn't be much of a challenge, right? All you then would have to do is go out and do it, and that's really not the hardest part. The hardest part is figuring out what to do, okay? So a huge part of doing your side hustle is going to be selling. Let's talk about this for a few minutes, and then we're going to go to questions. So in the chat, which you should see right next to my face, if you're watching this on your phone or on a desktop or on any other device, you should see the chat. Get in the chat, ask me questions. But what are the ways you can get your message to your customers, right? It depends what type of business you're doing. If you're doing something that's providing a service and it's in person, like for example, you're washing somebody's car, or providing a service like that, then, or you're selling something at an event, say you're selling drinks or food or whatever at an event, you would put up a sign, right? That would be the way you get your message out. Okay, that's the sort of default thing that everybody thinks of when you think about how to get your message out there to your potential customers. If this was an in-person event, you put up a sign. The sign says, this is what we're selling, this is the price. A lot of people, when they see that, they go, okay, I'm sold. I already know what that is. I know that I need it. I know that I want it. And that price seems good to me. So I'm sold. And then they go and they buy something from your concession stand or whatever it is, right? We've all seen other signs. Or if you live in a city, around the city, usually by roads and things, you'll have like a billboard sign of some kind that advertises something, okay? Maybe there's a picture involved, maybe there's a description, okay? So that's one way of getting the message out there. What are some other methods? Let me know in the chat, okay? There are many, many different channels to go over to get your message out there. And this should be the primary focus that you would have if you're considering doing a side hustle. You're going to have to get your message out there in some way, shape, or form. And that's going to be your number one concern. Your concern is going to be, what message should I put out there? For example, on a sign, okay, to simplify this and talk about the whole signage thing, you could put the name of your company, Bill's Foods Inc. There you go. Now, if I put that on a sign, would that be the best way to convince people to buy my product? Or should I do something like canned drinks or cold canned drinks, $1, something like that? Would that be a better message to put out there? What would be most convincing to your customers, right? So that's an example of a different, the choice you have in the messages you put out. And it's an example of one channel, right? What about handing out flyers? What about business cards? What about, I don't know, just to pick some really cheesy examples, is having a plane fly overhead with a banner being dragged behind it that says, buy Bill's cold canned drinks, something like that, right? These are all possibilities. Usually not the best possibilities, but they are possibilities. These are examples of how to get your marketing message out there, okay? And the other part of this is you want to make sure it goes to the right people, okay? You have to identify what people you're targeting, okay? Who is your target market? And then think, what's the best way to reach those people specifically, okay? If you put a billboard by the side of the road where cars can see you, like on a highway, that says, buy Bill's canned drinks, $5, it might not be that effective because those people are not at the event or not physically close to where you are selling your drinks, right? So this gives you some idea, okay? And this should be the primary focus. What would you do? You would demonstrate it, okay? A great way to do sales, which we don't often talk about on this channel, is to demonstrate what you're doing. Show the drink. Show how cool and refreshing it is with a fancy picture. Show somebody with a feeling of satisfaction after they've consumed one of the cold canned drinks, right? So you want to show the product. You want to show the product working. You want to show the result of the product. You want to show its effect, okay? These are things that will help convince people that, they should purchase the thing that you're offering, right? If you're selling a service, okay, you're not selling a product like canned drinks, you're selling a service. You're opening a plumbing service, okay? You go and you help homeowners fix their plumbing problems, okay? What should be the message that you put out there? Well, obviously, at its essentials, you could say plumbing services and then your hourly rate, I suppose. But it might make more sense to advertise what you do. I don't know. We repair frozen pipes. We unblock pipes, fixtures, whatever plumbers do. This kind of thing. And not only that, but you also show the experience. You show, a plumber who's friendly, who's well-dressed. They don't look like a slob. They're polite, okay? The whole thing's very easy. They come in, they're quick. You get the desired result. You could show that in pictures. You could show that in a video. You could show that, by describing it. This sort of thing, right? It's all about thinking through that stuff, okay? So anybody who's wanting to do a side hustle, usually the operation side, actually providing the service or creating the product, that's usually the easy part. Usually that's not really the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is in selling it. And when you approach that side of it, which should be your number one concern, these are things you're going to have to take into account. It should be all about getting marketing exposures. That means people who are potential customers should receive your message, and you'll try to get as many of those as physically possible. And then you worry about the quality of the marketing exposure. Was your message appropriate? Was it successful in convincing someone to do business with you? That kind of thing. And the final part of this was another little tip in the world of selling, which is you can also convey to people what the result is and what the danger is or what they're missing out by not getting your product or service. Okay, so in the case of a canned drink, it would be sort of saying, well, this event is not going to be nearly as enjoyable if you're dying of thirst, right? If it's a plumbing company, you could say like, well, you could go with other people that, they show up late and they're rude and it's a real pain. And you know how horrible it is dealing with, some tradespeople that when they come to your house, that they service the consumer market. You know how hard it is. You can't predict when they're going to show up. You got to take a day off work. You got to deal with them. The communication is not very good. The results are not very good. And the whole thing's one big headache. You could show that, that's why you come to us, right? That's why you need us. We get rid of all of that. We fix all of that. Something like that. Okay. So always think of like, what is the danger or what does someone have to lose by not getting your offering, your product or service? Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know in the chat, what are some other channels you can go over to reach your potential customers? Okay, we talked about 2, right? We talked about putting up a sign. We talked about posts on the internet. And we talked about a plane flying over, dragging a banner behind it where everybody can see. What are some other ways you could reach your potential audience, your potential market, your potential customer? Okay, I guess we'll open it up to questions. There's 10 of you guys here. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And hopefully you're getting something out of it. Let's see. We have Zohair Merchant says, good day, Mr. Bill Todd. Wish I could have joined this much needed session as I just started with a company with your advice I was hired on. Please, if you could have another one soon. Yes, well, I have these. I've been doing these twice a week. Actually, next week, there's going to be some schedule changes because I got to move some things around for my day job, which is consulting. So I'm going to be rescheduling. It's going to be slightly different times of the day and possibly a different time of the week when I do these. But you can watch them all. You can watch them all after the fact. It's not like I take them down or anything. But hopefully that works out for you, Zohair. Dumpling Abroad says, I was actually contemplating of approaching local businesses, for example, cafes or independent restaurants, and inquiring about making a short video for their website for no small fee at first. Okay, Dumpling Abroad, that's a good idea. Something, if you're just starting out, and like if you've been in this business for a while and you know how it works, great. If you're just starting out, on the other hand, what you may consider doing is doing informational interviews with the owners or operators of these cafes and things and local businesses, okay? Because an informational interview, you're not going in there trying to sell something. You're going in there, and what you're asking for is basically, I would like to sit down with you and just have a conversation. I'd like to ask you a few questions about the business and about, how it operates and where it's going. Could you spare me half an hour? That kind of thing. And the great thing about that is that you can ask them and you could say, what do you know about having an online presence? What do you know about having your own website, or short videos or whatever it is you're trying to sell? What do you know about it? What do you think about that? So you know where you're starting from with these people. Okay. If they say, oh yeah, we tried the whole online thing like 10 years ago and it was a fad, it didn't work. Or, oh, the people that did it did a really terrible job. I had to pay them by the hour and they didn't deliver anything that really increased my sales. Right? That's the problem I have. If I, do some kind of online presence for my cafe, it should drive traffic to my store. If it doesn't drive traffic to my store, I'm not interested in it. So putting up a website is all nice and it can tell people where my store is and what it looks like. But if that doesn't have any impact on increasing my walk-in number of customers, then I'm not interested. Something like this. So if you're then going to turn around and try and sell something to these people of that nature, you would have an idea of what their attitudes are, what they care about, what they need to see, that kind of stuff. And it makes the sales process a bit easier, like assuming you can deliver on what they're looking for. It makes it more effective, and then the whole thing is easier because you're speaking their language. And when you say, I can provide this website. It will increase your traffic by this amount if you maintain it and do this, then maybe you get people's attention, right? Also, for example, let's say that an owner-operator of one of these cafes or whatever said to you, well, I did do a website. I have a website. Or what we did is we got a presence on Google Maps. So we don't have a dedicated website, but, if somebody is nearby and they're looking for a cafe or whatever, they can discover us online and see that we're here, and they can see pictures of the store and they can read a couple of good reviews. So we don't have a website, but we've done that. Now, what we found was when we put this up, it increased our traffic by, say, 50 people a day, okay? That amounts to approximately, $800 per day, okay? So it was a revenue boost of $800 per day, okay? So that was the effectiveness of doing that. Now, if we were to enhance that, I'd be expecting at least, a sort of $200, $300 a day revenue increase to justify any kind of expenditure on increasing our online presence. So knowing this, it would also help you with things like pricing and things like what to offer. You could say, well, with this, as far as I can estimate for a business like yours, it may increase your traffic. It might drive traffic to your store and increase your revenue by this much per day, because it would bring in 30 extra people walk-ins per day, something like this. Like, it's arming you with this kind of information. So when you have these conversations with those type of customers, okay, in this case, you're business to business, you're going to businesses, it sort of informs you about how to do all this stuff, how to make a convincing pitch, and what you're up against and what the challenge is. It also kind of can send you a message and saying, like, look, this is what these people need, and I don't know if I can deliver that. I might have to go back and tweak what I'm offering so that I can offer them something that is compelling for them. Okay? So these are all things to consider, and you get that information by doing informational interviews. And what you might have to do is, before you just sort of jump into the sales process at the beginning, you may want to devote, say, a month to getting informational interviews, conducting informational interviews, and basically it's almost like a market research project, right? And then once you've done a few of those, then you can maybe take your first shot at doing a sales pitch and going somewhere. It may also be the way that you actually pitch to these people. You get an informational interview and then maybe go away and then come back a couple of days later or a week later and contact them and said, listen, first of all, thank you for giving me the informational interview. But I was thinking about what you said, and based on what you said, I may be able to do this for you, give you this, and this is what it would involve. If that's something that interests you, please let me know, something like that, right? So, and because they've already met you and they've had a conversation with you, and hopefully they liked you because they gave you the opportunity, you gave them the opportunity to talk about their business and what they think of it, and people love that, right? Presumably, if they liked you, they've already met you, it would be the chances of them pursuing that would go up, right? As opposed to just cold contacting somebody and pitching something, right? Usually that's less effective. So anyway, that's kind of an example of what may be possible if you want to go that direction. Okay, I'm a big believer in informational interviews. I think that they are an incredible learning tool in a variety of different roles, and this would be an example of that if you're wanting to offer a product to business clients or business customers. It's a great way to sort of get your foot in the door, get some kind of working relationship together, and then get information. And they're basically telling you what they care about and what's important to them. So yeah. Dumpling Abroad says, ooh, I never thought of that. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, hopefully it works out for you. I wish you all the luck. it's all about learning. Like this is an adventure. It's a lifelong sort of adventure in learning about people and about their needs, right? And to someone who really understands that, you really hold the keys to the kingdom. You can offer something of value. You know exactly how to pitch it. You know exactly what they could really use. And if you can deliver on any of that, you have something of real value to offer them. You also know how to reach them, how to get that message to the right people that have the power to act upon it. So all of that in one package. But it requires a bit of discipline. You can't go in there trying to pitch something. You have to go in there recognizing that the informational interview, it's about you learning. It's not about you. It's about them. They're going to talk to you and you're going to learn. Okay? You're not going to pitch anything. You're not going to try and sell anything. It's all about you learning. And then so that gives you value in itself. And then if you do want to use it as a way to sort of pitch to that company and possibly have a business relationship with them, it would require you going away and then initiating a second interaction and saying, thank you for talking to me. Based on what you said, here's what I could maybe do. Let me know if you want to pursue that, or let me know your thoughts on it, like whatever, right? So that's a second interaction where you come back and suggest something. But the first interaction, the informational interview, you got to be disciplined. You can't go in there with an intention to sell anyone on anything or persuade them to do anything. It's not about that. It's about you listening and learning what they care about and all that stuff. Wow, that was a long-winded rant. There are 10 of you guys still here, so hopefully that wasn't the world's most boring, monotonous thing to listen to. Yeah. So let me know what you're thinking. There's 12 of you guys here. Get in the chat. Let me know if you have any questions. What challenges are you working on right now? What's the biggest fear you have? What's the biggest problem you're having? And what's the thing you are wondering? And that's what I'm here to try and help you with. I find business absolutely fascinating. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's a win-win situation. I've heard people say that, business is about exploiting people and fooling people and, pulling the wool over people's eyes. Incorrect. There are quite a few unscrupulous people out there, but the vast majority of people in business recognize it for what it is. It's where you provide something that somebody wants, and they're happy to pay for it because they get a lot of value out of it. It's not about deception. It's not about lying. It's not about exploitation. It's about open and honest trading. I trade you a thing for money, and you're happy to do business with me because you're getting something out of it, and there's no regrets. British Rifleman. That's still an awesome name, by the way. Great info. Love these live streams. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've got another 5 minutes or so. So if anyone has any questions, now's your moment of glory. It has arrived, okay? All eyes are on you. The eyes of the world are upon you. And, what do they call it? An apotheosis. It's like the pinnacle of your entire existence is asking me a question. How's that for ego? Yeah, I'm not getting a lot of questions. It'd be nice to get more because I really don't have too much of a pre-planned idea of what I'm going to say. And I know people don't really like it when I monologue for a long time, so I figured I would open it up to questions. So next week, what I was thinking of doing is I'm going to move this live stream to Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in there. Instead of doing Mondays and Thursday, I'm going to do it maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, and then do about half an hour, and then go to my regular Q&A about job interviews and resumes and interviews and all that kind of stuff, applying for jobs, that kind of regular general Q&A. Dumpling Abroad says, one of my biggest challenge is taking that first step and walking through the door and asking the business about info, working with them with videos or asking how I can get experience in a certain area. Yeah, well, listen, one of the great things about doing informational interviews with these people is that the way I recommend people do it is you do it online, okay? So you use tools like Google Maps, you use tools like LinkedIn. You find the businesses with Google Maps, and then you connect with the individuals in the businesses with LinkedIn. And that's where you send the invitation to the owner or the general manager and say, look, I'd very much like to get your expert opinion on your business and the industry you're in. Would you be able to spare me half an hour? And that's how you get the informational interviews. Okay. So you don't have to walk through you can if you want. There's many ways to do this, but for a lot of people, the typical person who's wanting to start a side hustle and get into, some kind of business operation like this, typically people would prefer to do it online, and that works because with tools like LinkedIn, you can take advantage of them to do this. You send the request, and some people respond. A lot of people won't respond, but some people will, and those are the people that you end up having informational interviews with. And then they've you've set up a meeting online. Okay. So like you've communicated back and forth online saying, how about this day at this time, I'll come down to the store and you can, or whatever. And so you go in physically, you walk into onto the property, and the owner or the general manager is expecting you. You have a meeting with them. So it's a little bit easier from that perspective if you've set up the meeting ahead of time. You know that they want to talk to you. They've agreed to talk to you. And all you're doing is you're going in there and you're asking them questions. So like, what's been your experience with websites and with an online presence? Is that something that's important to you or not really? What have you heard? Like, what do you think about that? Is that something that's going to catch on, or that's something that isn't really necessary at the end of the day? How does that work? And just get their opinions on stuff, right? So it's a really low pressure exchange because all you're doing is you're asking some basic questions and just listening to them talk. Let them give their opinions, let them explain their history and what they think about it and what they know about it, and where they think it's going and what they think of it. It's a very low pressure type encounter. You're not trying to persuade them. You're not trying to sell anything. You're just getting their opinion. People love giving their opinion. It's very flattering for someone to say to you, I would very much like to listen to what you think about this thing that you know about, right? We don't get that very often. So when you do get it, it can be very flattering, right? So it makes it, in my opinion and in my experience, it makes it easy. It's not like a high pressure personal selling type situation. That's the thing. Yeah. Juan Hugo says, my girlfriend and I are working on a personal interior design brand. We are working on social networks like Instagram, LinkedIn, but it is difficult for us to find new clients. What would you recommend? Well, I'd need more to go on before I can give specific recommendations. An interior design brand. Are you trying to get institutional customers? Like you're trying to get stores to carry your brand? Is that how that works? Or are you trying to find individual consumers like that are buyers of your products? I would need to know more about what you're doing. But if you're trying to get the institutional vendors or partners or that kind of thing, then I would do something I sort of just described over the last 15 minutes. It would be more of the informational interview method, and then just do it that way. I don't really consider LinkedIn a super amazing tool to sell something to people, right? LinkedIn isn't really about selling. People are generally not into having unsolicited sales encounters with people. That's not really the way, in my experience, you go about that. it's more of a networking tool. It's more about like, let's talk, let's figure out what your needs are, what my situation is, and maybe if there's some common ground, that kind of thing, right? That's very nice of you, Dumpling Abroad. Thank you very much. Individual consumers. Okay, well, if it's individual consumers, I would just personally, like, I'm not in the whole what was it, fashion kind of thing. Where was it? Interior design brand. I don't have specific skills in that industry. So, what I can say is that generally speaking, trying to sell something like directly to people over LinkedIn wouldn't be my first choice. What I would do is, maybe if you were joining groups, if there are groups that are about, I don't know, fashion or related topics, and then doing posts, possibly that could work. It helps get your marketing message out there. You show some really cool looking pictures or whatever, and then there's a link to wherever you want people to go, that kind of thing. Another track that may work for you is content marketing. So basically, you take the theme of today's podcast, today's live stream, which is, how to sell something, tell them and show them. Usually showing people really helps. So if you've got a great brand, you want to show people what it looks like. You want to wow them with how awesome it looks and how awesome it is. Okay. And then, doing videos is a possible extension of that, where you show people in greater detail, like what you're all about, what your products are all about. Or if it's a service, I don't know, you show them what that entails. You show them the results of it. You show them the effect of the results. Okay. And if you were to really take that to its conclusion, you would get into something called content marketing, which you may already know, where you're sort of, while you have people's attention, you're educating them, you're entertaining them, you're informing them, this sort of thing. So they want to stay, and they want to, learn, and they want to be entertained, and they want to stay focused on you, in which case, that is also, that also serves to increase your, your credibility, and the more people dwell on your product or your brand, the more likely they are to buy one of your products or services. So, these are all possibilities. So you'd have to experiment. You have to try different things. A good starting point would be looking at what other people are doing in that space. Okay, what other brands are doing. You could use that as a starting point. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to do the same thing, but you could maybe experiment in the beginning with doing what others are doing. And then based on the results you're getting, then you might want to start tweaking it, right? And the journey you're going to be on is to learn what your potential customers, what their thought processes are, what they think, what their opinions are, what appeals to them, what doesn't appeal to them, what convinces them and what doesn't convince them. Okay, that data is essential. And that's going to be the journey you're on. Because if you knew that, you would be a top interior design brand in no time. If you knew exactly what people cared about, what was important to them, what they thought was cool, what they thought is lame, what channels would be best to reach them, and what best to say. If you knew all of that, this would not be much of a challenge. So that's really what this is about. It's about learning that information. So you got to spend as much time as possible interacting with your potential customers and learning how they think. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Good morning, Zohair. Well, it's I got to sign off in a couple minutes. So that's going to be close to the end of this episode of Side Hustle Ideas, but hopefully that makes sense. Zohair says, basically providing the value that the prospect is needing, their pain point, correct? Well, it depends. I don't like to call it a pain point, especially if, like the last person Juan was talking about, doing a personal interior design brand. I don't know if pain point is the best description, but basically, yes, it's a want or a need, right? You're trying to understand their wants and needs, but you're also trying to understand their thought processes, their attitudes, their opinions, their history, with this kind of thing in the past and how it's shaped their opinions. You're trying to figure out all of that. And that will inform you as what best is the way forward. You like that grammar? That's how we use the English language. Like that. It's poetry in motion. Anyway, thanks everybody for being here. There's 16 of you guys here. You guys are all awesome. Hopefully you got some value out of that. I will be back next week with another episode of Side Hustle Ideas. Until then, if you want to do your own side hustle, you're awesome. You're taking your steps into an awesome world. It can take you places you never thought possible. And it's a lifelong journey that can lead you to tremendous success. Thank you so much. I will see you next week. Take care.